Welcome to the Relentless Minds podcast with Lori Jimenez, a platform where influential entrepreneurs get real and share their stories of challenges in life that they've had to face head on and conquer in order to be where they are today. Here, you'll get an inside look at the adversities that these individuals have experienced or are currently dealing with, in addition to their opinions on real life matters and philosophies in life. Most importantly, you'll learn what it takes to have a relentless mind so that you too can stay headstrong in your pursuit of a better future. In this podcast, you're going to get 100% authenticity from people that have figured out how to beat the noise that society creates and have a higher level of self-mastery. Hi, welcome back to my podcast, Relentless Minds, a platform where influential entrepreneurs share their stories of overcoming challenges to give you guys, my listeners, inspiration to keep discovering your potential. Today, I have with me Trevor Mcgregor. Trevor is a master platinum coach who has over 20,000 hours of coaching experience and works with Fortune 500 executives, high-level real estate investors, entrepreneurs, world-class athletes, and professionals to help them transform their lives to reach phenomenal levels of success. Before launching his own coaching program, Trevor was a master coach with the Anthony Robbins Group for 5 years, offering highly elite coaching. Trevor, thank you so much for being here today. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day and your busy schedule to be on my podcast.
Oh, thank you, Lori. Great to be here. Thank you.
So first off, I really would like to know, can you tell me a little bit more about your current coaching business and about what your mission is when providing services to your clients? I know that you're big on real estate investing. That's actually how I came across you from the Best Ever podcast with Joe Fairless. So I know that you're big on real estate investing, but I also know that you're amazing at helping your clients transform their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So Trevor Mcgregor, I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And, my passion is really people. I've always been fascinated with, why people think and behave the way they do. And I always knew growing up that I would, do something that had to do with people. And it was just a natural extension when I got into hospitality, when I got into real estate, that was kind of my stepping stone into really working with people and seeing why people were successful, why people failed. And I was fascinated by it. So as my story will unfold on the podcast here, I eventually, became a coach, a master platinum coach. And I'll tell you that story in a few minutes. So today I am a master platinum coach that helps people all over the world, go from where they are to where they want to be in their personal life or in their professional life. And, I absolutely love it. So they might be in real estate, they might be in business, they might be a stay-at-home mom. But at the end of the day, I'm here to help anybody, anytime, really take things to the next level.
Love it. And so I do know that you have an incredible amount of experience in coaching, over 20,000 hours, over 20 years in the business. I am curious, what initially inspired you to be a coach?
Well, that's a great question. I get asked that a lot. And it's a neat story because there was a time in my life, I grew up, I was, big into sports. I thought I'd be a professional hockey player, but I just wasn't big enough and fast enough. So I gave up that dream and, went to university, studied business, loved marketing, loved finance, loved human resources and all of that stuff. And I went to work for a hospitality company. And this hospitality company owned restaurants and real estate. So they owned a bunch of restaurants and they developed real estate. And I ultimately worked for them for quite a period of time in the marketing department, doing some finance stuff, some operations, HR. And there came a time where ultimately I got to invest in that, kind of expansion. And I got really excited, Lori. I pulled all my money out of my own 401k and saved up all this money. I even convinced my own parents to take out a 6-figure mortgage on the family home.
Wow.
And they literally gave me 6 figures to take and invest into this opportunity. And I did that. And for the first few years, it was great. And then, there came a time where things didn't go so very well and we were over leveraged and we couldn't, hang on. And we ended up having to close a whole bunch of those locations that we had expanded to. And in a nutshell, I lost all that money.
Wow.
So there I was, defeated, broke, unsure of how I was going to go forward. And what does somebody do when they're down and out? Well, they hire a coach.
Oh, yeah. There you
go. Hire somebody who has the ability to hear them, see them, feel them, and support them in getting out of, the victimhood and get into Victor. So I hired this great coach, and he said, Trevor, what do you feel you want to do now? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, have you ever thought about doing real estate? And I said, I don't know anything about real estate. And he said, well, it's one of the greatest wealth vehicles on the planet. You can use other people's money and ultimately you can scale that. And Lori, that's what I did in a relatively short amount of time. I scraped a little bit of money from family, friends, people that still believed in me, which included my own parents. They were super disappointed and nervous, but I said, don't worry, I'll figure it out. And in a relatively short amount of time, I hired this coach and I started to follow what he did. I started to do what he suggested I do. And I bought a little property, and then that was a really good deal. So I leveraged the money out of that and bought another property, leveraged the money out of that. And it was a really good time for appreciation in Vancouver. So I ultimately made a lot of money in a short period of time. And within 2.5 years, not only, did I pay back my parents, I paid off all of my loans, and I still had a sizable amount of money to keep doing real estate.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you were picking up these properties, were you doing flips? Were you reselling? Yeah, okay. So you definitely were selling
everything. I did some buy and holds. I did some wholesaling. I did some flips. And again, I literally had this coach, there to support me through the good, the bad, the late night tenant calls, all the good and bad that goes with real estate. And then, I started to really step into personal growth at that time as well, because it had changed my financial life. I thought, wow, who else can I plug into? And that's when I found Tony Robbins. And I started listening to all the CDs, reading all the books, went to my first Tony Robbins event, and man, that was it. I was hooked. And so I hired a Tony Robbins coach, and his name was Dave. And Dave was an incredible coach for Tony Robbins. And we started to work together. And he said, Trevor, you're so passionate about these calls. You're so passionate about people. You're so passionate about business and real estate. Have you ever thought of becoming a coach yourself? And I said, no. And he goes, well, I think you'd be really good. And by the way, Tony Robbins is looking for business coaches. He didn't just want to stay in the life coaching, but Tony's got something called business mastery as well for you and your listeners. And so, I applied. I said, well, let me apply. I didn't know if I'd get in. And I said, I'd start part-time. And so, Lori, I started to go to all the events, and I traveled to Florida. I traveled to California. I mean, I literally immersed myself into Tony's world, and my application was selected out of close to 500 applicants. They took it from 500 down to 200.
Incredible.
200 down to 100, and then 100 to 50. And when you get selected into that 50, you literally go and you immerse yourself in all of Tony's trainings. You sit in front of, his elite team, his leadership team, and you do live coaching. You literally are coaching people through business issues and personal issues.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm happy to say that when the dust settled, I graduated as the number 2 person in the course.
Wow, that's incredible. It's interesting because when you said that when you had, going back a little bit, when you lost like all that money in that business, that you did what anybody would do, try to pick themselves back up, and that's hiring a coach. And honestly, even though that should be the way it goes, I honestly feel like not everybody does it that way or think they don't think that way. So what was it that made you know that was the route to go?
Well, that's a great question. There was 2 things that my coach said to me. He said, number 1, that the past does not dictate the future unless you stay there. That there was a new way of thinking and behaving, that if you did that, you could step into the present. And in the present, you can do a lot of things that will support your future. So that was number 1. And that quote still stays with me forever. The other thing he said is there's only 2 things that you need to get out of anything and step into where you want to be. And those 2 things start with the letter M, and the first one is mindset. And the second word is modeling. You got to have a high performance, peak performance mindset if you're going to go to a new place. And then modeling best practices, is really the fastest way to get there, because even Tony says success leaves clues, So I really heard what the coach was saying, and I thought, you know what, he's right. And I just, surrendered. I surrendered to the fact that I didn't like my circumstances, and I sure as the heck wasn't going to figure it out on my own. And that by working with the coach, it would fast track my ability to go up.
Yeah. And that's great. And that you had that mindset from the get-go about the importance of having a coach in your life. And when it comes to Tony Robbins, and you just touched on this, and That to me is something that I truly, truly believe in and agree with. And that's about the discomfort, right? About the discomfort in your life or your current situation having to surpass the discomfort of taking action. And and when that happens is when that puts you in a position where you're going to have that motivation and just like you have no other choice but to move forward and go towards your goals and make a change in your life. So completely,
that's it.
Yeah, completely understand that. And so you were in that position when you lost your business, the hospitality business, right?
Yep.
And how old were you, if you don't mind me asking? How were you at that point?
I was 30 years old on the nose, so 30. And, at 30, my coach also said to me, Trevor, you're relatively young. Like you've got your whole life ahead of you. You can't let this one little business thing defeat you, and that was great advice too, because, it doesn't matter if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70.
Exactly.
It's really an opportunity to understand that, shit rolls downhill, but ultimately also at the same time as the universe often, sends you something you don't want because it's got something greater planned for you over here. So had it all worked out and I stayed in the hospitality real estate, kind of hybrid, working for someone else, making a wage over here, which was still pretty good. It was still a really nice place to work and a good job. And I had a company car and expense account and all that stuff at the time. But man, life is totally different today. I mean, I literally am coming to you today from Australia. I'm down under for Christmas and New Year's of 2019. And I'm here meeting with my clients, doing some consulting, taking a look at some real estate with my wife, Lisa. And, once we leave here and go back to Vancouver, we're there for a little while. Then we're off to the, best ever conference in Denver. And then we're going to Costa Rica.
My goodness.
We love to travel. We love to do business, all over the globe. We've been in Paris this year, London this year, Hong Kong this past year. And, coaching and real estate is one of those things that allows me to work from anywhere there's a phone and an internet connection.
Exactly.
So when I go back to working in hospitality, which was 60, 70, 80 hours a week in one place versus what Lisa and I do today, holy smokes, I almost thank the universe for all of the challenges that were heaped on me.
Exactly. It's kind of like the universe kind of put you on the right path. It was like, this is actually not where you're supposed to be.
Right. And the number of people that I've been able to coach, to teach, to mentor, to train, I mean, it's a pretty big list. And I don't say that to beat on my chest. I'm grateful for the opportunity, to really coach millionaires, billionaires, business owners, real estate investors, doctors, lawyers, cardiologists. Like, what's really great about this is there's a ton of variety in it as well. So, and the money's not that bad either. So very, very blessed and grateful.
Can you tell me a little bit, because I'm curious about that jump that you made back when you were 30 from going to a position of security where you had you had all of these things that were just given to you. It was a comfortable position. And you just said, no, I want something more. And you didn't just go for something small. You're like, let's take out, ask your parents to take out a 6-figure loan or a 6-figure mortgage back on the property, your own money, and then just invest that all into this opportunity that you didn't even know if it would succeed.
I think it's the fact that, people always will need to eat and people always need a place to, live and do business. So food and shelter have been human needs since the dawn of time. And I thought, wow, if I'm able to follow what some of the other owners and shareholders were doing in the company, because the company was actually quite successful. We were doing roughly $40 million a year in annual revenues at the high.
That's incredible.
But again, with all of the different market cycles and 9/11 happening and the global financial crisis, I mean, that's business. And I don't care if you're, in real estate or if you're Apple, if you're Richard Branson or if you're, in some other business never goes like this, Lori, does it? So I knew that there would be ups and downs. I didn't just think that my up would have such a profound crash. But getting into it at the time, if I go back to Success Leaves Clues, you look at a lot of real estate and hospitality companies, they make money because, there's always a need there.
Yeah. So you saw the examples and you were saying your thought was that you just replicate it and it should be fine.
Yep. That's it. You got it.
So moving forward, you got your coach. He helped you out of that position when it did crash, and you started to invest in real estate. You decided to then later on become a coach, and you got this when it came to you becoming a master coach with Tony Robbins, how was that experience?
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. I mean, if you know Tony, and everyone usually knows Tony that's in personal growth, but he's been doing it for 40 years. He's been doing it with people that are in business, people in sports, doing it with people that are suicidal, people that are struggling in their marriages. So what was great about Tony Robbins is we were trained in all modalities. So it didn't matter if I was coaching somebody in their career, their finances, their relationships, their health, their fulfillment. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got our black belt in being able to help anybody, anywhere, anytime with anything. So I'm blessed and grateful to have had, half a decade with arguably, one of the most powerful people in personal development. And, you start out as an elite coach, then you go to a master coach. And then for the good ones, like the 80-20, you're elevated into what's called master platinum status. And it's a tall order. I mean, there were some pretty challenging people that Tony would give us, that we'd have to ultimately step into the highest version of ourselves and make them better. And there were times where I didn't know if I was going to be able to crack the code with some of these people around the planet, but I think we download from the universe what we're meant to download, and the results were spectacular. And even to this day, it was a really tough decision to leave Tony Robbins because it's a great organization, but I also knew that for my destiny and my freedom and the levels of impact and income that I wanted to have, that, sometimes all birds must leave the nest, right? And so exactly. I gave my notice, and I now do this under Trevor Mcgregor International. That's my company. So whether it's coaching, consulting, speaking, or my real estate division, there's really 4 income streams that I've got that, allow me to live a certain lifestyle. Again, I still love Tony. In fact, Tony was in Vancouver just a couple of months ago, went down with my wife. We sat in the front row, and we even went backstage afterwards to talk to Tony and have some photographs taken. But he's still my man, and I owe so much to him and his entire leadership team. Man,
yeah, because he started you on this journey of coaching, huh?
He really did. I wouldn't even know what I'd be doing right now if it weren't for him.
Wow. That's a great way to start. If you're going to start coaching, start with the best.
Yep, it sure is.
Was that nerve-wracking for you when you first made that, we're going to make that decision?
Oh my God. Yeah. Because again, I'm somebody that is I have a big need for certainty. I like to know where I am, what I'm doing, how much I'm making, whereas my wife, Lisa, is the polar opposite. She loves to travel. She loves to fly by the seat of her pants. She's a very smart woman. She's got her international business degree, but man, at the time I thought, what are you doing? Like, you have no guarantee that this is going to work out. You owe all this money. Throughout this entire journey, I have really questioned it, but man, the universe has delivered, I think, due to my defiant commitment to helping other people, right? If it was all about me and I stayed focused on, will I be able to help these people? That's not a good place to come from. But when I focus on helping them, and I give all of my energy and attention and problem-solving skill set to other people, we've seen some unbelievable transformations personally, professionally, in their health, in their marriages, and in their fulfillment. So it's, again, a unique playground to play in.
That's amazing. And you made a good point. It's interesting because you say you're a man that really needs certainty, right?
Yep.
But all of your decisions, like these big actions in your life, have been the complete opposite. It's kind of like, that you want to reach this highest potential of yourself. And so what you do is that along the way, you control as much as you can control so that you get to that next level, because everything else is going to be uncertain. But what is certain is what you have control over.
And I got to give a shout out to my friend Jack Canfield as well. Jack's analogy of driving a car at night. If you were driving from Florida to New York at night, that your headlights are only going to shine so far, right? But you trust that when you drive, 100 feet, that those headlights are going to shine another 100 feet and then another 100 feet. And eventually, if you keep going and you follow the GPS and the road signs, you'll get to New York. And, I had to trust that it was going to unfold that way for me as well. And there were times where I'd lie awake in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. going, am I going to survive this? But here I am. So
yeah, because a lot of times people, and this happens to me too, and it's about like they have a goal, right? And this goal is a big goal because it's going to take them to that next level in their life, and it overwhelms them. And
Yep.
instead of trying to break it down and just say, what is the next step? And that's what I try to do also, is always just saying, okay, this is my end goal, but let's not think about that right now. Let's break it down to like the next, like the steps to that, right? So this month, what needs to be accomplished? You have to break it down.
I love that. You really do, Lori. And that's what I love about your podcast. It's like you're hearing all of these stories of all of these common people, that have literally done that by maybe falling down, skinning their knee, but getting back up and knowing that if the goal is over here, you got to have a vision for what it looks like, but then you reverse engineer a plan and you go start over here. You take 3 steps and then you measure your success. Am I getting closer? Am I getting further? And then you keep making the steps. We call that chunking. And Tony is probably one of the master chunkers on the planet. And yeah, if you ever want to get out of overwhelm, or your listeners want to get overwhelmed, stop and say, what are the next 3 steps? We call that your 3 to thrive. What are 3 things that are going to allow me to catch my breath, and get back to where I need to be so that I can keep marching to over here?
I absolutely love what you're doing when it comes to coaching, because honestly speaking, and this is a book that really made an impact on me and inspired me to create this podcast. And thank you for your point on how much of a value it is for people. But it was called The Go-Giver. And I don't remember the author right now, but I read it a few months ago. But it's called The Go-Giver, and it's a series actually. But that one book basically was all about talking all about giving value, right? Always coming from an area of contribution. And one of the laws of success there was that your income is directly related to how many lives you impact and how much you impact them. So I mean, at the end of the day, the focus should be on what you can provide to people. And, the end result on that is just, you are going to, get compensated, but the focus should be on how much you're impacting somebody else. And so that's why I love what you're doing. And it's incredible because it's like from the beginning, you saw how it influenced you and, how it helped you in your own life to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, Lori, I love that you bring that up, and the book is right. I mean, when you really think about it, and you go back 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, this whole world works on, contribution, adding values. Exactly. You got to add value to yourself, to your family, to your neighbor, to your community. And I always say that where there's impact, there's income, because there's something known as the law of compensation. And the law of compensation is a law. It's like the law of gravity. If I jump off the roof of my house, I guarantee I'm going down.
It's inevitable.
Right? The law of compensation decrees and means that, when you add value to others, you're going to get something back.
Love it. I did want to ask you, because you were with Tony Robbins for 5 years, and then you did decide then that you were going to pursue your own coaching business. And so what was it that inspired you to leave and start your own coaching program?
Yeah, great question as well. And I think that, I was inspired by a lot of the individuals I ended up coaching with Tony. There were millionaires and there were billionaires. There were people that owned, tons of real estate, that owned tons of companies, that, did things for profit, but also did things for people, that traveled the world and literally lived outside what I think, Normalville is. And ultimately I thought, wow, to really have an amazing life, to really have, I guess, the opportunity to reflect back. We call it the rocking chair test. When you're 85, 95, 105 years old, you're going to be sitting in a rocker looking back at, not what you got in terms of stuff like houses or cars, but, what were the richest experiences of your life? And that's why we're big on travel. That's why we're big on, I guess, philanthropy. That's why we're big on, helping people. Even if, I have a contract where I charge a lot of money over here, I still do some pro bono coaching over here because, at the end of the day, the money is secondary to really, helping humanity. And so I got inspired and I thought, to really go out there and really, suck the juice out of life, I got to see the planet. I got to get in front of new people, new cultures, eat new food. And like I said, we've been blessed and grateful to be able to do that. And we've even taken our kids around the world to certain countries, and their experience outside of the classroom has been, as valuable as inside the classroom. So we're big believers in that.
So when it comes to your own clients, that's important to apply too, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they're so ambitious that they forget that it's important to have balance in your life, right? You need to give the time to your family. You need to give the time to just taking a break and going on vacation. And it's not because you get burned out also. And then that can contribute to being discouraged even.
Yeah, you can get burnt out. You can get into a rut. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat, you watch the tube, and you go to bed. Well, that's not what I think we were put here to do. I think we were put here to really find something that satiates us, earn an income, but also travel. I don't care if you travel to a museum in your own city or you travel, 2 hours away on the weekend. I think that we're meant to go out there and remind ourselves that we can't be in front of laptops and tablets and iPhones all day long. We need to really remember to plug into this beautiful blue planet, and go out and spend time in nature, go to a lake, take a class, do something that you haven't done before. In fact, I've got one client, I won't mention who he is, but he literally has 52 things he likes to do every year. And he creates a list at the new year of 52 new experiences that he's going to do, over the next calendar year. So one a week for a whole year. And it could be, something simple as taking a trip, or he just had his sister had a baby girl, and he says, I want to babysit for the first time her son and daughter and let them go out for a night of dinner. And he's, sat with a toddler and a little baby. So he wants to experience that. Then next thing you know, he's going to Greece. And the next thing you know, he's skydiving. So it doesn't have to be some big grandiose thing. It could be maybe you want to take a cooking class. Maybe you want to play the guitar. But for goodness sake, do something different this year than you did last year. Because, man, it's an amazing journey.
It's all about that growth. It's all about wanting to grow in different facets of your life, not just business, but also your personal life, your family life. Hobbies and stuff, picking up hobbies. I have a friend who he's so focused on growing his business, and his business is doing great. He was telling me, he's like, I just joined a soccer league because you can just it can become overwhelming. Like you need that time to just kind of disconnect and go and do normal people stuff, Well,
I love it. And I had another coach, that I worked with, and a good friend of mine, John Assaraf, and you might remember him from The Secret. In fact, John Assaraf is the man that introduced me to my wife, Lisa.
Oh, wow.
And that's another story. But John always said to me, Trevor, balance does not mean equal. It's not 50-50. It could be 70-30, 60-40, 90-10. But you got to have your work life, but you need to find some family balance, some health balance, some, hobby balance, travel balance. And again, don't think that it's got to be split down the center. And I thought that was always a very valuable distinction.
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of times people might not want to put that balance, or they're scared of putting other things into their life that are healthy because they think it's going to take up too much time. And it's like, you don't need, even if it's just 10 minutes of meditation, right? Like, just kind of make it where it's productive.
Yeah, absolutely. I love you said that, Lori, because again, people have a real blind spot when it comes to time. And that's another thing that I excel at, is really how to optimize time. We all have something called 168 hours a week, and you've got to know, what are you doing with that time? We sleep, we eat, we shower, we pay the bills, we go to work. But man, I'm telling you, for those that are defiantly committed to up-leveling, you know what? They're going to go out there and do things differently. And that's kind of what you're reminding your listeners to do, is maybe it's 5 minutes here, an hour here, 2 hours there. But for goodness sake, do things that you've always been pulled to do, but have made that excuse that I don't have enough time. Get rid of that. Dr. Wayne Dyer wrote that great book, Excuses Be Gone, and step into it. Because part of what I do is I cultivate identity. And if people have an identity and they've said it for 20, 30 years, I just don't have time, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we smash that. We step into, I have all the time I need. I have as much time as Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, Elon Musk. It's what you do with that time. Would you agree?
Definitely agree, because I see it all the time with entrepreneurs, and they have all of these different ventures that they're invested in. And I'm wondering, how in the world do you manage to do all of this at the same time? Like you yourself, you're saying that you've got, 4 different sources of income that you've got going, and you have to work at those simultaneously to get them to a certain point where they're actually making you income.
Sure. It's coaching, it's consulting. I'm a professional keynote speaker, and I do real estate. So I invest in everything from single family homes to apartments. Last year, I bought apartments in Texas, bought into 505 self-storage units in Key West, Florida. My wife and I bought into a luxury resort in Costa Rica. because we want to do more retreats and more speaking and more of the human experience in person than just always on the phone or internet. So I don't say those things to beat on my chest because, man, those are things that have been on my vision board for years. Okay. So it's time, it's money, it's energy. And now I've got some people on my team that help support me. But, as a one-man band for many, many years, and to some degree, I still love, doing most of this stuff myself.
Awesome. I love it. I did want to pick your brain on when it came to time management, because honestly speaking, I can improve on that. So can you please give us some tips on how to manage time better?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to your listeners in a way that will be really easy to digest and remember. And if I were to put it into a triangle, so let's put it into, a triangle. There are three sides to a triangle. So at the bottom of the triangle, I would have them write the word low or no value. So, Lori, a low or no value item might be, watching mind-numbing television for hours, or surfing Facebook for hours, or, doing something that really doesn't add a heck of a lot of value to you, right? The second part of the triangle that you've got to really think about is what we call, high dollar value or high time value. That might be something like making money, listening to a podcast, reading a book, doing something to better your life, right?
Yep.
And then the final side is, high lifetime value. That is, what can you do to step into the highest and best version of what you want and why you want it? And are you spending time doing that? So the way that we really chunk it down into time management now is you have to know the different colors. So the very bottom level is what I call brown time. Brown time is where you start to measure how much time in a day or a week are you spending in the first category. The second category is green time. That is how much money or time you're spending making money or doing some research, taking a real estate course, doing something that can better you and bring a little bit of income to you.
Yep.
And then the third and the highest part of the triangle is yellow. And that's like the sun. It's the giver of life. It's what are the things that are going to matter in your life? Are you giving to the homeless? Are you, supporting your community? Are you putting out a podcast to help people up-level themselves? So if you know how much brown time you're doing a week, how much green time you're doing a week, and how much yellow time doing a week, you can then change those numbers and reinvent them to be whatever you want them to be.
Those ratios. And that's why even time blocking, right, is important, because you time block. One, it's going to help you manage your time. But two, to that note, it's going to help you track where all your time is going.
You nailed it. If I could just kind of put an exclamation mark on that, it's just one word, and that is awareness.
Awareness.
If you're aware of what you're doing with your day, what you're doing with your hour, what you're doing with every minute, it's not that hard to say, is this helping me or hindering me? Is this taking me further away from what I want or closer to what I do want? And you'd have to be an idiot at my stage not to, talk to people all over this beautiful planet from all walks of life, all different ethnicities and nationalities and economic status, to see that time management is a universal challenge. We don't get taught how to deal with it in school, and therefore most people on the planet struggle with it, all day long. So that's why I'm here to really support you and your listeners with just that simple exercise and see how you might want to make that better for yourself.
That's so great. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
When it comes to staying on track, right? So time management helps you stay on track. When it comes to the challenges, when your clients, and you can speak on the sense where you've got all these clients that have their challenges, what are your biggest key points to help people stay on track and overcome those challenges?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I have to, give a shout out to my man, Tony Robbins, because he's got three things that are only the three things that you need whenever you face an obstacle or a roadblock or something. And all three of these words, Lori, start with the letter S, as in, superstar. First S word is your state management. That is, if you are in a place where you're unresourceful, where you're sad, depressed, angry, you're in doubt, fear, worry, or anxiety, you got to change your state. Right?
Change your state.
You got to get up and you got to move, or you got to put on music, or you got to hydrate, or you got to go outside and breathe, or put on some kick-ass music, but change your state. Number two is to check in with your story. And your story is your identity. And if you're in a bad state, I guarantee your story is I'm a victim to circumstance.
Yep.
I'm a victim to the weather, to the forest fires, to the tornadoes, the hurricanes. I'm a victim to something Donald Trump did. I'm a victim to whatever. And that's not a resourceful place to come from. You got to go back and find a time where your story was you were absolutely amazing. You know, maybe you went and got an education. Maybe you got your driver's license. Maybe you won the grade 3 spelling bee. I don't care what it is, but come up with a stack of powerful stories so that you can access just how bloody magnificent you really are.
Got it.
So now we've got your state, we've got your story. The third word is your strategy. That is chunking. That is, do I know what I want, why I want it, and what I need to do to get it? And then you reverse engineer and you start taking step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. But you can't tackle the strategy unless you own your state and your story. Would you agree?
Exactly. Number 1, state, right? You got to change your state. Number 2, your story, your identity. You got to make sure that that's positive, not putting yourself in a state of being a victim. And then strategy, how you're going to implement that.
You got it.
And also, I did want to just kind of bring this up. You have a free 30-minute discovery session. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what your ideal client would look like?
Yeah, again, my ideal is a great question. My ideal client is somebody who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they want to absolutely up-level every area of their life. It might be their finances, their career, might be finding their life purpose, might be, raising great children. It doesn't matter what your outcomes are, but if you're stuck and you want somebody to help unstick you, all you need to do is to go to trevormcgregor.com, and that'll probably be in your show notes. But trevormcgregor.com is a place for you to contact me. We'll set up a complimentary 30-minute call. We'll talk about what's working, what's not working, what's preventing you from getting to where you want to go. And I'll help you in that 30 minutes completely free of charge. And, my intention there is to help people. And then at the end of that, if you want to find out more about my coaching services, hey, we can talk about that as well. But my number one goal is to help people.
Thank you so much for going into that. So to wrap up the episode today, what is a crazy but true fact about you?
Well, I'll embarrass myself and all of the American listeners, and everyone else will laugh, but I'm huge into the sport of ice curling.
Ice curling,
where you throw those 45-pound rocks of granite down a big sheet of ice, and you use these brooms and you sweep and you try to get it into the circles. And I played semi-professionally. I played on an amateur tour. And one year, back when I was much younger, I won $30,000 for playing the sport of curling. How crazy is that?
That is very crazy. I can't say that's a very embarrassing because you're that skilled that you made all that money. But that is a crazy. I've never heard of the sport before.
Yeah, it's big in Canada, but I'll give a shout out to the U.S. listeners. The U.S. curling team just won the gold medal in last year's Olympics.
Well, you got to give it to the U.S., right?
That's it.
My other question also is, what is a book that has made a great impact on you that you would recommend to my audience?
Probably my number one book is truly Think and Grow Rich. I mean, Lori, that's been my Bible. I've easily read it 50 times. I listen to the audio. My kids even know, what Napoleon Hill's going to say in certain chapters because we play it when we drive around town going to soccer and going to baseball and all that stuff. But that book, even though it was written, a long time ago, is still so relevant. And the secret to the book is in the title, right? It says, think and grow rich, not do and grow rich. And that's why, as a high performance mindset guy, you know what? I really believe in what the foundation of that book was all about, because that's the key to success. It's all up here.
It's all up there. It's all about your state of mind. That's where it starts. Thank you so much, Trevor. I really appreciate you being on here today and sharing your wealth of knowledge. If my audience did want to reach out to you, I have your email at trevormcgregor.com. Website, it's trevormcgregor.com. And also, he's even giving you guys his personal cell phone number, and that is 604-833-7179.
That is correct. That is my personal cell number. If anyone needs anything, you can text me, you can call me. I'm in it to win it, and that is to support, anybody that's ready to up level. And, I think when we do it together, the whole universe benefits, doesn't it?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Trevor, for being on here today. And for everyone else, thank you guys for listening. Until next time. That concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, feel inspired, and would like to hear more, please subscribe to the Relentless Minds podcast via the link in the show notes, or visit lorijimenez.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.